8:32, everybody, and we are awaiting a judge's ruling on whether or not to dismiss those corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
So the judge says he wants to consider all sides and not shoot from the hip in making his decision. So this morning, we're joined by Eastern District Judge Frederic Block, who has been on the bench for 40 years and can give us some insight into what exactly is happening. So good morning to you, Judge Block.
Good morning, but it's 30 years, but I like 40 years.
Oh, there you go.
30
Okay.
years.
I'm glad I came today. Hopefully I'll make another 10 years now.
There you go.
Well, it is really great to have you here. So thanks for waking up early to be with us. We just want to kind of lay out what exactly Judge Ho is going through right now, because he says he wants to make a very, thoughtful decision here. So does he actually have a team that helps him go through all these legal briefs? What's going on right now?
Well, the process is really pretty consistent with what we do all the time. But whenever we have a controversial matter, we bring the lawyers into court, we hear them out, we try to decide how we should process a case. Some cases require a hearing, some can be done just on the briefs or the papers. Each case is an individual case by itself. I don't know much about this, and I don't know Judge Ho. I know him professionally because I read his decisions, and many times I, rely upon them in cases that I'm writing about. But, it's simply a process that we have to go through, and each case is individual.
So go ahead. No, so you don't know if he has a team, or does he do everything on his own?
Does he do everything on his own?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I assume he does what every judge does. I mean, we have law clerks, we have, a whole staff there at our disposal. And we're blessed with the fact that we have these talented young people, most of them just out of law school, and they're little Santa's helpers. They help us with research and do everything we need to have done in order to come out with, hopefully, the correct decisions.
So when you look at the merits of this case, and there's so much information that's kind of in there about a quid pro quo or not quid pro quo, I know you didn't say you're not looking at specifics, but when you go into your chambers, how long until we can expect a decision here, right? Because he has to write it himself, and then he's going to put out the letter. What's the typical timeline for something like this?
There's no magic, answer to these questions, because once again, it sounds kind of corny to repeat it, but each case is an individual case. I mean, I get a case sometimes that requires, a lot of extensive hearings, briefing and writings and arguments in court and stuff like that. In other cases, I can decide in a more summary fashion. So I know that everyone's interested in Judge Ho. I get that. I'm here to talk about that, and something else, of course, my new book. But there's no magic formula to it, and I can understand the curiosity that people have. I don't know Judge Ho, but I have confidence that he'll apply the rule of law.
Yeah. Now, you said you're familiar with his rulings, though. You've read
Because, I'm working on a decision right now.
Okay.
And even before I knew I was going to have the pleasure of coming here today, I'm using one of his cases that he wrote. It's a commercial matter, nothing to do with the criminal law. We have commercial jurisdiction, we have criminal jurisdiction. We do it all except domestic relations. And I was impressed with his decision, and I'm citing it in the case I'm working on right now. I don't know him personally, but I know the quality of his work is something which, I have a lot of respect for.
And before we get to your book, I want to ask about a special prosecutor, because we hear this term about, can the judge appoint a special prosecutor in a case like this, right? Will the judge appoint a special prosecutor? What goes into that decision about appointing somebody else?
I don't know whether I have the authority to appoint any special prosecutors. I've never done that. And I don't think it's really within my jurisdiction to do that.
Okay. Well, let's shift gears then. We want to talk about, you're a very leading advocate in sentencing reform and the Second Look Act. First of all, can you kind of lay out what that is exactly?
So we have the First Step Act, which Congress enacted, as you know, a couple of years ago, and Trump signed off on it. And, I was pleased that when Pam Bondi had her confirmation hearing, the first thing she said is that I support President Trump's First Step Act. So if he didn't do that, we would not probably be here today to talk what we're talking about. So the First Step Act is a piece of federal legislation which governs the federal courts and the prisoners who are in jail. About 10% of the prisoners in jail are there because of federal crimes. It doesn't apply to the states. And what it does is that it has really recalibrated the sentencing laws of the United States. Under that law, we are obliged to reconsider previously imposed sentences, and in a worthy case, we reduce the sentence or we even let somebody out of jail, even if they're in jail for life. I've done that. The Second Look Act is what's pending in New York State, and this is so important because What it does is it tracks the First Step Act. It tracks the federal lead. The states have to do this as well because 90% of the prisoners are in the state jails, not the federal jails.
Okay.
If we're going to attack mass incarceration, which was the raison d'etre of why President Trump signed the First Step Act, to deal with our enormous mass incarceration and expensive process that we have, then the states have to adopt it as well.
Yeah.
New York State has this proposed Second Look Act. It's been in the legislature for the last 2 sessions, has enormous bipartisan support. For whatever reason, the governor is a little skittish about signing off on it. There's a campaign afoot that hopefully this term will finally have the counterpart in New York State of the First Step Act, which is sorely, sorely needed.
Okay, when you're talking about that, how does repeat offenders and things like that come into play here? Because that seems to be an issue here in New York City, not ensuring that people who have committed crimes are back on the street so quickly.
It's an emotional issue, and I get it.
Yeah.
Nobody, including myself or any other judge, wants to be in a situation where you're letting murderers of people out of jail only to, commit more crimes and go back to jail. But, one of the things we have to be mindful of is to separate our emotional self from our intellectual self. And I can understand how anybody would say that if a judge lets somebody out of jail, that person is, really not sensitive to the fact that we don't want to necessarily be soft on crime. So we have to overcome that emotional reaction and look at our justice system in a much more objective way. And that's what the First Step Act does, and that's what President Trump does, and that's what the new Attorney General understands.
Yeah.
So the First Step Act has had enormous bipartisan support. Conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat. 88 senators voted for it. 350 members of the House voted for it. The public has to understand that you have to overcome the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
That any time you have sentencing reform, that you're being soft on crime. That is not the case.
And that's what you wrote the book about.
Well, the book has to really, yes, the book talks about that, of course. And we use chapter, book, and verse. We have some good cases we talk about to make the point.
Okay, A Second Chance, A Federal Judge Decides Who Deserves It by Judge Frederic Block. Wherever books are sold?
Sorry?
Where can people buy it?
It's on Barnes & Noble.
Oh, there you
it's
go.
on
Okay.
Amazon.
Oh, very good.
Okay.
The idea of the book is not to make money.
Yeah,
the
to
idea of the book
inform.
is to really try to inform the public about these important issues that you should think about in a rational way, not in an emotional way.
Thanks, Judge Block.
Oh,
and
it's a
here's to
pleasure
another
being here.
decade for you.
Yeah.
Well,
Right?
I'm going to see you in 10 years from now.
There you go.
Okay.
When I'm 100, I'll be back.
Look at that.
You're a
I want to
Spitfire
put
for
that
90.
in writing. I'm going to hold
How
you
are
to
you
it.
90 years
You
old?
look fantastic.
Thanks so
Spitfire.
much.
All right, Judge, thank you so much for
Thank
seeing
you
you.
for
all right?
having me.